This week, McClellan's mistake in the raid of freedom as the Confederates push for the killing blow. Let's start this week off at Vicksburg. Grant has surrounded the Mississippi town for nearly 2 weeks and has assaulted its fortifications twice. This only cost him men who will never return home. Who is to blame for this? Well, Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton's engineers who built such strong parapets. But who can Grant blame? On the 30th, McClellan issues an order to his men congratulating them for their victory on the 22nd and blaming Grant for not properly supporting them, saying they would be in Vicksburg by now if he had. Major General Ulysses S. Grant and Major General John A. McClellan have been butting heads for quite some time, with the overconfident 13th Corps commander being a permanent headache for the leader of the Army of the Tennessee. Question is, what can old Ulysses do about it? He hasn't heard the order, but once he does, I think McClellan might have to re-enlist as a private. Then there is that raid of freedom in Beaufort, South Carolina. Beaufort, South Carolina is the 2nd South Carolina Volunteer Infantry Regiment colored under the command of Colonel James Montgomery, a violent abolitionist who participated in Bleeding Kansas. With them is one Harriet Tubman, also known as Moses, a woman who worked on the Underground Railroad for many years. They number 300, and on June 1st they load themselves into 3 vessels. One of those vessels agrounds itself by accident, but the other 2 slip into rebel waters. On the 2nd, a detachment is landed, who drives off Confederate pickets. They spread out as the ships continue further upstream, landing more detachments spread over the stately South Carolina coast, freeing slaves and burning supplies. The ships open fire on any Confederates they can see, which isn't many. The rebels, fearing sickness, left very few units in the area, and with false reports right before the raid, they are slow to respond. The Union grabs food and makes their way back to their vessels, along with 800 free men. Colonel Montgomery and his gallant band of 300 black soldiers, under the guidance of a black woman, dashed into the enemy's country, struck a bold and effective blow, destroying millions of dollars worth of commissary stores, cottages, and orderly dwellings, and striking terror into the heart of Belgium. Brought off nearly 800 slaves and thousands of dollars worth of property without losing a man or receiving a scratch. It was a glorious consummation. The colonel was followed by a speech from the black woman who led the raid and under whose inspiration it was originated and conducted. Her sound sense and real native eloquence, her address would do honor to any man, and it created a great sensation. We have gathered some additional particulars of the recent destructive Yankee raid along the banks of the Combahee. The latest official dispatch from General Walker, dated Green Pond, 11 o'clock, Tuesday night, and which was received here on Wednesday morning, conveyed intelligence that the enemy had entirely disappeared. It seems that the first landing of the Vandals, whose force consisted mainly of 3 companies, officered by whites, took place at Field Point on the plantation of Dr. R.L. Baker at the mouth of the Combahee River. Destroying the residents and outbuildings, the incendiaries proceeded along the river bank, visiting successfully the plantation of Mr. Oliver Middleton, Mr. Andrew W. Burnett, Mr. W. M. Kirkland, Mr. Joshua Nicholas, Mr. James Paul, Mr. Meningold, Mr. Chas T. Lones, and Mr. W. M. C. Haywood. After pillaging the premises of these gentlemen, the enemy set fire to the residences, outbuildings, and whatever grain, etc. they could find. The last place at which they stopped was the plantation of W.M.C. Haywood, and after their work of devastation had been consummated, they destroyed the pontoon bridge at Combahee Ferry. They then drew off, taking with them between 600 and 700, belonging chiefly, as we are informed, to Mr. W.M.C. Haywood and Mr. C.T. Lones. The residents of these plantations are located at distances from the river, varying different cases from 1 to 2 miles. On the plantation of Mr. Nicholas, between 8,000 and 10,000 bushels of rice were destroyed. Besides his residence and outbuildings, which were burned, he lost a choice library of rare books, valued at $10,000. Several overseers are missing, and it's supposed that they're in the hands of the enemy. Last thing this week is in Virginia, in the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia. Lieutenant General Robert.E.Lee is caught in confidence. Without Lieutenant General Stonewall Jackson, he had to reorganize his army from 2 corps to 3, with Lieutenant General James Longstreet commanding the 1st, Lieutenant General Richard S. Ewell the 2nd, and Lieutenant General Ambrose P. Hill the 3rd, with Major General Jeb Stuart commanding the cavalry. He has 75,000 men, approximately, mostly veterans. Really, they're invincible. But without supplies, his home state of Virginia has been laid barren by the war. He needs to take it to the Union. And he has been reading a bunch of newspapers from the North. They're wary of the war, and Lincoln is so unpopular. Yes, he can definitely trust these copperhead papers. If we can baffle them Yankees in their various designs this year, and our people are true to our cause, our success will be certain. Next year there will be a great change in public opinion at the North. The records will be destroyed in the 1864 presidential election. I think the Friends of Peace will become so strong as that the next administration will go in on that basis. We have only therefore to resist manfully. The Yankees will be broken down with hunger and hard marching, strung out on a long line and much demoralized when they come into Pennsylvania. I shall throw an overwhelming force on their advance, crush it, pull up the success, drive one corps back on another, and by successive repulses and surprises, where they can concentrate, create a panic, and virtually destroy the army. Then the war will be over, and we shall achieve the recognition of our independence. Lee has been asked to break up his force and send some to save Vicksburg. But he divided his force before at Chancellorsville and nearly ended the Confederacy. No, a knockout blow can be had, and it will be had. On the 3rd of June, the 1st, 2nd, and Cavalry Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia moved from Fredericksburg and head towards Maryland. On the 4th, the Army of the Potomac's Chief of Staff, Daniel Butterfield, reports this to Major General Joseph Hooker, the commander of the Army of the Potomac. He has to stop the fall of the Union. Then there's Sickles. He returns home to his saintly whore wife Teresa and their child Laura. He hands them flowers he handpicked and a signed book by the First Lady. He keeps up with the news from the front line, and he reads an amazing article from the New York Times. Whether it be in organization and discipline of men, or in their cool and skillful handling from a brigade to an army corps in battle, General Sickles has proven himself a thoroughly competent and complete master of himself and of his position. In the present emergency, the imperiled North could do no better than have him raise and command an army based on the populace of New York, who were familiar with his successful career as a soldier. Sickles also takes time to be with his family, rowing them around the bay and talking with them. A perfect family man who for some reason isn't trusted by his wife. She assumed he would be worse. Many men return from the war not just physically wounded, but mentally not what they used to be. He is, though, just Dan being Dan. That's where the week ends, with McClellan making a gamble, the freeing of 800 slaves, and Lee's final campaign. Let's focus on Lee. He has lost one of his most trusted generals, but he doesn't have much time to mourn or find another. Let's focus on Lee. He has lost one of his most trusted generals, but he doesn't have time to mourn or find another Stonewall. Not that he could. Is he rushing too much? Then again, all time wasted is time for the Army of the Potomac to reform, but does it need to? Only the 11th Corps was really destroyed. Maybe Hooker is ready. No matter what, the war continues as the two sides move towards a final engagement, be it with Lee and Hooker, or Grant and Pemberton, or his real enemy, McClellan. Hello, it's the entire Civil War Week by Week team here. If you liked the video, please like it. If you want to see more, right now there should be a playlist and a best of video. And I do hope to see you next week. If you want to see how the Civil War continues, please subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.